One of the things I wanted to check with you on is, I believe I talked to Will about this as well. But this idea of like a CBD isolate. So one of the questions we have that I want to touch on was actually from an alcoholic in recovery, who was saying like, okay, like I talked to my sponsor about this and went to your site, like sent me screenshots. She's like, oh, I went to the AlcHempist website and it says there's like a small amount of THC. So I guess there's this thing, the question of like, am I going to get high? Like, in certain people, you'll hear them say this where you're like, no, like, you're not going to get high, take this thing. And I've seen them be like, no, you don't understand. I am super sensitive. Like, I'm going to feel something. So I guess the question is, when I was talking to Will about it, I was talking about athletes. So the same concern that this recovering alcoholic has is a concern of like my fighter PETA, like she's an MMA, like, and they test for these things. Yeah. So is it possible, like, are there products that are 0 THC, or do you have a desire to create a 0 THC? Like, is that something you think about?
I definitely hope to in the future. I wanted to focus on what I felt was the most beneficial for a like overall plant right now. But I think there's definitely ways to create products with no THC in a good way. There's what they call broad spectrum, which think of the terminology we just talked about, full spectrum. When you extract it, it has just that little tiny bit of THC. So you got the full spectrum. Broad means you're broadly covering that, but you're removing the THC part. Okay. So there are ways to remove the THC. There are ways to even do it organically now. For a while, there wasn't, which had the use of some pretty harsh solvents, and now they've gotten to where they can do it organic. So there are products out there. There are people typically, so if you're looking for those broad spectrum products, and what that means is that you're still keeping, so like an isolate, like if we look at the full spectrum and you pull out CBD, that's one part of this whole thing, like this whole circle. So you're only getting the CBD. Okay. Broad spectrum, we're just removing the THC. So you're still getting majority of the other plant and the terpenes. Okay. Now, what I say, it's not just pulling out the THC that simple and the rest is the same. You do lose other terpenes and things in the process, but still you keep some, which I feel like are hugely beneficial. And you keep the CBD and you keep other cannabinoids like CBG and CBN and some of those other ones out there that are starting to be known now that are good for people. So there are a way to do it. And I do plan and hope to make a broad spectrum specifically for this reason, because I know there are athletes out there, like one of your fans, like you said, the recovering alcoholic, that has to be mindful of THC. Yeah. And I completely get that. And, you know, just even with the small amount of THC, there is a small chance, like, you know, that if you're getting drug tested, that it could pull up. Yeah. And so if it's best not to, you know, chance it if you're an athlete getting paid big bucks to do it. But I think overall, you know, broad spectrum's a better one than just a straight isolate, because you're still going to have the other parts of the plant. And I still think that's the best or other better way.
That's a killer explanation, man. I don't think I realized that. Okay. So CBD isolate, pure, just like pure one isolate being extracted. Broad spectrum being many cannabinoids. Terpenes, you said?
Terpenes
as well. Okay. And then like full spectrum is going to be, there's going to be some degree of THC in there.
Some degree of THC.
Okay.
Exactly.
Cool. Yeah, that's very cool. That's super helpful.